Take a
I'm
deep
ready
breath.
when you are, baby.
And okay, we are ready. Take us in.
Welcome back to the Voices of Women Summit, where in honor of International Women's Day 2025, we are raising the voices of hundreds of women so their messages can be heard. Your host for this session is Carrie Casey West. Carrie is a storyteller maven hailing from Santa Barbara, California, and her first book is coming out just after the summit. She's got another amazing guest coming right up. Take it away, Carrie.
I'm going to let you take it away, Deborah. This is your group.
I'm about to. I'm super excited today to have you here with me, Carrie. And this is our next exciting guest is Carrie West. And Carrie is an author, a speaker, and a life story coach who uses her entertainment industry experience to support clients with their life and business stories. I want to welcome you to the program, Carrie West.
Thank you, Deborah. And I'm sorry, I wanted to hear your call in. You Deborah is my compadre today. She and I are handling this track of interviews, and she has been a joy to work with. Just a joy.
So we are looking forward to this conversation, and I hope everyone who's here, if you have questions, please put them in the chat, and we will try to get to all of them before this talk is over. So it's fantastic that we're going to talk about claiming your seat at the table.
Yeah.
I'm super excited to hear about it. But before we get into it, Carrie, could you talk a bit about how this became your why? Why did you decide to focus on this expertise?
Well, it's interesting. The last 5 years, I've been focusing on my book, Life Rewritten, which comes out next week, by the way. Little subtle plot, but not really. And yeah, and one of the things that I have, Shauna just talked about the brand, and my brand is about rewriting as a storyteller and in my experience in the entertainment industry. And if you've all heard this, when somebody leaves a project or a project's delayed because of creative differences or we had to get new writers, they couldn't agree on the story they wanted to tell. And it occurred to me that our lives are stories, complex, complicated, but a story nonetheless. We have characters, we have themes, we have plots, we have drama, we have action, we have heroes, we have villains. We have all the same elements of a story. So when you take apart your story, you can rewrite it. So one day, because I work a lot with corporate clients, it occurred to me, I showed up for a meeting and I was once again the only woman at the table of all the executives in the room, and I was a consultant. I'm the only woman at the table. There were sometimes 5, 8, 9, 10 men, and I'm the only woman at the table. So in the midst of me writing my book about rewriting your life, I thought, why? Why do we not have more women at the table? And I'm not defining the table. That's for you to define. But I go to these meetings with executive decision makers, and I'm the only woman at the table. Why is that? So it became this passion of mine to first understand why and then come up with a plan to help women claim their seat at the table, whatever that table is, whatever that table is. So that's my why.
That's really very helpful to understand. And it seems like the environment you work in is the one that seems to, in part, shape your vision of how you're going to become an entrepreneur. So that's really fascinating. How do you decide which table you actually want? How do you know that you're at the right table?
That is the first step in the process because let's face it, everyone, we have been given stories. We have been told how we should be. And the minute someone says should to me, I stop them. Whenever you hear should, that's your story. I should be working in a corporation. That's a story. I should be getting married, having kids, and be a stay-at-home mom. That's a story. The minute somebody tells me should, I say that's a story. Where did you get it from? if you want those things, if you do, I worked with a client who said to me, my mom was, I was kind of raised in a group with a group of people. So it was not a cult, but it was this group situation somewhere in California, a good friend of mine, actually. And they did just the opposite. They wanted her to be this free spirit and find her path, but she didn't have any kind of direction at all. So I worked with her and said, because let me back up a second. When you come into this world, we don't have any direction. We are a blank slate. And we come into a family, it's like walking into a play in the second act. And you have your parents who are in the middle of their stories, and you have your family members. And all of a sudden, how do you fit in? So the easiest way to do that is to adopt their behaviors, their actions, their beliefs, and their feelings about what life is. Kids don't learn to be racist. They don't learn to hate people that are different. They pick that up from their families. We were all told that if you're different, you're scary. So it's the same with our lives. We are told that as a female, as a woman, we have certain guidelines of how we should be and what we should be doing. Again, should. As soon as you hear should, it's like, ah. So I work with people to first knock off the should. And just like I was saying, my friend, to be named, I'm not going to name her name. She didn't have any direction. So she didn't know what she could do. It wasn't about what she should do, but what could she do? And I thought that was so empowering. What could she do? So as a blank slate coming to me and saying, what could I do? And I thought, oh my God, the world is yours, baby. You could do anything. So
Yeah,
the
that's
first,
a great understanding to finally come by. I think there's a lot of fear in life of stepping out on your own, right? And
yes,
get beyond that fear factor. Then you have the next step of trying to figure out what do I need? How am I going to accomplish this? Even if you
that's
say
right.
do it, what do you need, Carrie?
That's the next step. So the first step is, what is your seat at the table? And the seat may be, I want to be an influencer in my community. I want to take on some things in my community. The seat at the table could be, I do want to be at the boardroom. I do want to have an executive management position. I do want to have that level of success in my life. But it can be anything. If you want to be an influencer, if you want to be a nonprofit person, whatever you want to do, that's the seat we have to define. Then we have to know, what do you need to get there? Is it skills? Is it training? Is it a skill? Like, for example, I worked with one guy, and it was a guy who wanted to be the CIO in his company. The skills he needed, because he was a talented technologist, very talented, but the skills he needed was how to run a department. He did not have that skill to run a department. So we had to take him to a place where he could learn how to run a department. Then he could take the other thing. So there's the day-to-day working thing, like if you're going to be a doctor, there's certain things you need to do to be a doctor. You can't just say, I'm going to be a doctor today. But once you have that training, then what's the mindset, the skill set? And I'm a little bit nervous because I think mindset's a little bit overused. But what is the thinking? What is the day-to-day thinking of what you can do? To me, that's your story. Is it possible for me to take that seat at the table? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. As you were talking, I was thinking of that old joke, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? And the answer is practice, practice, practice. But I think
Exactly.
that's not everything, though, from what you're saying. You mentioned mindset and a couple other things. So besides learning the skills that a doctor needs to have, what else? A doctor has a practice, but what else is necessary there?
Well, let's go with the doctor example. Do you want to be involved in a practice with other doctors, or do you want to be a lone ranger? Either are valid. There is no judgment here at all. And that's the other thing. You have to take the judgment off the table. It is okay if you want to work on your own. It's okay if you want to work with a practice with several other doctors. Again, no shoulds. No shoulds. I should be working with other doctors. Why? When somebody says I should be doing this, I'll say, why? Well, don't I need to do that in order to be successful? No. What do you think you need to do to be successful? Because you got to break down those old belief systems, the old constructs that are holding us in place. It's a mindset of beliefs that are holding us in place.
And for the
So
people
the
who are
step.
listening, are there some certain concrete steps that you could take, a person could take right now to get the seat at the table? What is the first question I need to ask myself?
First question is, what seat do you want? What do you want? And here's the other thing. I call this book, this next book, I've got a dozen books ready, called Leadership Rewritten. We have been told that the next step in your career is to become a leader in the organization, whatever the organization is. So leadership, and I'm on a speaker bureau, and they have these things about leadership for women, leadership for business, leadership for entrepreneurs. It's an overused word. What does leadership mean for you? Do you believe, well, I need to get a promotion. I'm very happy in my job and I love it. But at this point in my career, I really should be, again, should be a manager of the department. Well, a manager of a department is a different set of responsibilities. Do you really want to manage a group of 10, 15, 20 people? For some people, the answer is yes. For other people is no, I'm kind of a lone ranger and I like to just go in and do my job and do my thing. But I've been told I should be doing that. Why? Become a leader as an expert in your particular skills. They call them subject matter experts for a reason. And subject matter experts are incredibly valuable, incredibly valuable. Some people say that because a leadership job, because they think that's the only way they can get a pay rise or a pay raise. And I hang around with a lot of British people, so they call it a pay rise, but in this country we call it a pay raise. And for all the folks here from the UK and outside this country, it's what do we do to get a bump in our salaries? How do we become more valuable that we get a higher salary? And oftentimes that's what's driving these leadership conversations. So what can you make yourself more valuable to the organization so you can get a raise in income? So
Great.
we break that, you got to take that apart.
Yes, you do. Now, one of the great things I'm hearing here, I mean, you could take a personality test or a vocational test to find out what you should do. But that's not really the thing you're advocating at all. You're saying, what's a creative answer to that question? What do you want to create? And I love
Yes.
that about your book and about what you're talking about today. So could I ask you, what was the first lesson you learned when you took a step away from that should?
When I took a step away from,
From shoulds that you may have lived with before.
well, I'm going to tell you something. I don't have any kids, but I have a stepson. And he's in his 30s, and he said to me one day, and he was very frustrated. He said, you don't do the way other people do. You do your own thing. You make your own path. How can you do that? What are you doing? And I said, that's the greatest compliment you ever gave me. That's I've always made my own path, and I didn't even realize that until I wrote the book, because that was an excavation of myself and who I am. But he was so frustrated with me because you do your own life. What you don't follow any of the rules. It's like, what rules? What rules am I supposed to follow? And I ask everybody on this call, and I ask everybody that I meet, what rules are you supposed to follow? Do you have a book? Because honestly, I want that book. I don't know what rules I'm supposed to follow. Do you,
I love
Deborah?
um I don't anymore. When I was 60, I said, throwing the book away, and I started a very new life. I stepped away from all the things I should do, and I said, I'm doing this next phase on my own. So 13 years
Thank
out here.
you.
But
Thank you.
yeah, I think it's great. And do your own thing was a staple in the 70s when I was in college. So I love that it's making a comeback, and it's coming back, as you say, in the best way by allowing you to find who you really are and do the thing you really want and desire and love to do. Why shouldn't we follow our bliss? I think
I'll tell
Jane
you.
Paul used to say that. Follow
uh,
your bliss.
I'll tell you, I was going to college at a time when the women's lib movement, for all any of you who's watching this, I know this will surprise you, but I'm not 30 anymore. I'm not in my 30s. Um, I got a call. I was applying for colleges and I got a call from this woman. I was 16 years old because you apply in like junior, sophomore year or something like that. And she said, "You did very well in your SATs and your grades are great. What are you going to school for?" I said, "I have no idea." "Well, I want you to consider going into engineering or business leadership." And it's like, well, why? "Well, because you're smart enough and it's time that females took on the roles that men traditionally held." 16 years old, I said to her, "Why don't you try to help me find out my path? My mom's bugging me to get married and have babies. I want to go to college. I don't know what I want to study, but why should I study engineering and business leadership just because that was a traditional male role and we needed to become men? I'm not a man. I'm not. I know it's surprising, but I'm really not a man."
Great to find out early in life who you are and
No
what it is you want to
kidding.
do. Yeah. And I think a lot of
Yeah.
our parents had a different idea because they wanted us to be safe. And that's where all those shoulds started to come into it. My mom said, be a teacher or be a secretary. She didn't want me to be a nurse because she thought it was too hard, and it's what she did. But I wanted to be a writer. And it took me
There you
so
go.
long to say, I should do that, or I want
Me
to do.
too. Me too. And I had to wait until my parents died before I went to film school and worked in the entertainment industry. I couldn't do it when they were alive. They wanted me to be a teacher or a typist, and I wouldn't take a typing class. I refused. But it wasn't until they both died that I finally went to film school and followed my could, my should.
Yeah, it's sad that there were so many constraints. I think they meant well because they wanted us to be safe, but being safe doesn't always satisfy all those urges that you have later. And nothing worse than getting to the end of life and saying, I shoulda, I coulda, if only I woulda, and not
Well,
doing.
I want to break one more comment that you said, because this is my role in life. I challenge everything people tell me. When you say they wanted us to be safe and happy, they were giving us the stories they were given. Generational stories. We all know that. You all know a generational story from, when you cook, you have to put the ham in the pot a certain way, or you have to do your dishes a certain way. We were given those stories, and I know they meant well, but they were given me their story. There wasn't any ill intent. There isn't any ill intent. And that made it easy to forgive and move on. But it is their story. And you're right. That was what they were told so that they would feel safe and happy from their parents' perspective. So there's a lot to unpack here, Deborah. I mean, I know we're just about ready to wrap up here, but I just you and I need to have more conversations. I really like you, so I want to keep having our conversations. And everybody, I just get so excited about challenging these concepts we were given. That's my purpose. I challenge everything. A lot, I can frustrate my partner and a lot of people, but I challenge everything.
Well, this sounds
Same
like
thing.
fun. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say same thing. I refuse to get married. We've been living together 13 years and I refuse to get married because I just want to challenge this whole notion about marriage. But that's in my book, Marriage Rewritten. So
All right.
I'm
I'm
hoping
gonna
hoping to be around. Huh?
A lot of books we have to read. And
A lot of books I have to write.
that too. And speaking of books, I noticed that you have a free gift for our audience today. Could you talk a bit about what that is?
Yes, my free gift is the Leadership Rewritten guideline, and it speaks about the whole overview of taking apart, finding out what it is you want, and then what do you need to get there? Is it training? Is it skills? Is it changing a belief system? What do you need? Then living it. What would it feel like when you have it? And then actionable items, actionable steps, real live steps you can take now. You don't have to wait. You can clear through all these things very quickly, and you can just get to stepping into that new role you want, whatever leadership role it is.
That's fabulous. Now, for people who have not yet taken care of the VIP option, this would be a good time because Carrie also has a wonderful VIP gift for those of you who do. Carrie, could you tell us about it?
Sure. I am giving everybody an introductory call. As you can probably tell, I love to talk. So, so if you want to have a call with me to talk about what your plan is and how you can start to get on track for the leadership role you want, the one that works for you, get in touch with me. I'm available.
That is so great. Now, we've had a wonderful conversation, which I know is going to continue at least between us. But we do have up next a wonderful speaker by the name of Tina McDermott, who's going to join me on track 4. And I hope some of you will continue with us. And at this point, Carrie, do you have one last word that you want to leave with everyone today so we all go home quite full?
If I hear one of you say should, you're going to be in trouble. No more shoulds. Let's delete that word from our vocabulary. Let's talk about what we could do, what we can do, not should, what we could. Could opens doors, should shuts them. Should shuts.
Well, that was a great tongue twister to wrap it up with. Thank you so much, Carrie, for being with us today. Carrie West, you can give her an applause hand in the chat. And we are finished with our conversation, but I know that the ideas are going to continue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, that was an amazing speaker. For replays of this talk and all the talks, plus an incredible gift bundle, upgrade to VIP now. If you have any questions or problems during the summit, you can always email our support team at support@voicesofwomensummit.com. Stay tuned. We have another fantastic speaker coming right up.